Let's see, because it says it's going. And if I look at the restreaming, but it's behind, I'm gonna put my headset back on so I don't look like I'm on the Borg as much. So part of the purpose of having this event is because a lot of people don't know what we do and how it's different. Um,
Live.
I'm live. Hello, everybody out there. Yeah. So a lot of people don't understand what we do and what we do differently. And 15, 20 years ago, there weren't many physicians who did medicine like me, who focused on nutrition and talked about things like vitamin levels and supplements and reversing disease. Now, I call it consumer fusing. There's too many gurus out there with too many conflicting messages. You know, we just had a patient today send an article. One of the things we do for cardiovascular disease, which I think is incredibly proactive and should be done on almost everybody, is to look and see how much plaque do you have, you know? And so his score went up. So he sends me an article quickly saying, exercise causes increased coronary calcium scores. I'm like, oh my goodness, you can find some guru, somebody who says anything almost out there about every health habit and every diet, and they funnel to you through their channels, their books, their TikToks, their whatever, the things that support their evidence, but not the things that don't. And part of the reason why there's evidence that it supports it and evidence that it doesn't for a lot of things is because we're unique. You know, most of medicine, conventional medicine, we've been on the herd model. If it works on helping with cancer for 80% of the people, that's what we go with, right? There's people it doesn't help. We don't go there. You know, same thing with medications and drugs.
You're good.
We're good. They're checking my streaming saying I'm good. So one of the things we try and look at is a little bit more of your genetics, a little bit more of in-depth testing of where your levels are. So we were just talking about vitamin D levels, and you know, if you don't know where you are, how do you know how much to take? And then you've got the noise that comes out of conventional medicine because there are no long-term studies that show vitamin D long-term helps the immune system. They pretty much have backed off and said, oh, well, we're against checking your vitamin D levels, which then means the insurance companies all say, we're not going to check your vitamin D levels. You can get it done pretty inexpensively, self-pay, $35-ish. She's looking at me, maybe. She doesn't remember for sure. But, you know, it's not too expensive to check your level and know where you're at. Studies that have been done are not precise enough. They don't measure people's levels, then give them a dose and measure an outcome. They kind of, a lot of them, the omega-3 studies in particular, are really bad at this. They don't measure the omega check, which is what are the balance of the fatty acids in my blood, address it by either changing diet, because sometimes it's a dietary thing, or address it by telling people they need to eat fatty fish 5 or 6 times a month or take a supplement, and then measure and see that you get to goal. A lot of them just take a whole bunch of people. We got 12,000 people in the study and we gave them each one capsule of omega-3s and we saw no difference in their cardiovascular levels. Well, it depends on what's in that capsule, depends on where your level was. It's very complicated to make those herd proclamations because we're not herds, we're individuals. And I started on this journey of doing medicine differently because of my own health journey, right? That's where a lot of us get here. I was tired. I was somebody who had my babies and raising kids during medical school and residency, and I was so tired. And everybody said, you should be tired. You know, of course you're tired. Of course you're tired. And, you know, I know doctors, I'm in the hospital or in offices, and I had a couple labs drawn. Oh, you're a little bit anemic, but, you know, you're still childbearing age. You're supposed to be anemic, you know, you're not anemic enough to be tired. It just takes, you know, some iron, eat some beef, you'll be fine. The long and the story of it is one of my children, at some point we were at Nationwide Children's Hospital with a pediatric endocrinologist. And he looked at me and he said, any family history of autoimmune disorders? I have a big family history of autoimmune disorders. And so he was checking some labs on my son, and because I'm a doctor, he's a doctor, he wrote a lab order. Back then, the rules were a little less about, you have to have a chart, and my thyroid was out of balance. But not only that, I had Hashimoto's. Even him, who saw it on my face or something in how I presented, probably because I lost most of my eyebrows, said, "Oh, you're not bad enough to start on medicine now." It was like another 4 years from that before I actually started down my own journey of helping myself with the Hashimoto's and the thyroid disorder. And now at 62, I can look back and say, if it had been addressed sooner, I would have been a better mom, better wife, better doctor, better student, better everything, because I was so tired all the time. And that's what those antibodies do, is they are inflammatory to you. They disrupt how your thyroid works. So that's how I ended up in this world and started going to this conference, that conference. And the more you learn, the more your doors get opened, the harder it is to go back to prescribing for the herd. And then I was fortunate enough to get a lot of my training when AIDS was a big thing. It was new. Fortunate enough that, I remember when Viagra came on the market and there were samples, and all of a sudden all the sample boxes were empty and we weren't sure where the pills went. But all these drugs started coming out very quickly. We had such an avalanche of pharmaceuticals coming out. And the reps back then, I was at the tail end of when they could take us to dinner and rent out the entire amusement park for your families and all the perks that used to be around. That went away. I didn't, that went away at a certain point. But I saw that these magical drugs brought significant side effects in a lot of people, because we were just putting them out there very quickly. And I'm a why person. Again, I have kids, got little ones. Gonna fly to Florida. Will you? The pediatrician says, make sure you give them a little Benadryl about a half hour before you fly. They'll sleep. Worked for one of my kids. No, it was the worst flight ever. He was crying and screaming and wriggling and a toddler, and oh my gosh, we metabolize things differently. So again, we come down to a personalized looking at you, your diet, your lifestyle, your genetics, family history, and diving a little deeper to try and figure out how do we get you to your goals. When I'm working with Michelle, the nurse practitioner, or Jennifer, a nurse practitioner, or any actually healthcare professional that comes here, and in our new patient package, what the lines are, what are your goals? Because we get in our own way sometimes, like we learn about this really cool test of checking things like cardiovascular wise. And if the patient's here because they have post-herpetic neuralgia, they don't really want to hear right now about their advanced lipids. We need to address the reason why. So we really try and personalize and knit it all together. And we try and work in a way that matches your goals. Any questions from the peanut gallery out in the world? No, we got some more people coming in. So what do we do differently? We're looking at things differently. We're peeling the onion differently. We're trying to match things to you differently. To do that, why did I leave insurance back in 2009? Wasn't on purpose at that time. That's another long story. But it turned out to be a blessing because we spend a lot more time. We, in general, most of our new patient appointments are at least a half hour, if not an hour. Most of them are an hour. It's unusual to have a half hour. And our goal, much to some people's frustration, is to educate you about the labs and what they mean to you, right? I have some patients who come in and they just tell me what to do. I don't want to know, just tell me what to do. And they're frustrated because they don't really want the education. I'm a frustrated educator, so I love giving the education. Michelle's really good at the just tell me what to do and putting it in a succinct way, because I think she's wired that way a little bit. More. Hi. So I'm going to drink a little bit of water real quick. I have the water bottle. Bringing Michelle and Jennifer on board, Health Happened, and Lauren Helton over here sitting on the floor is our health coach. She's an RN. She was the cardiac rehab nurse at Health First, a little frustrated by getting people too late. You know, she wants to help people not end up in cardiac rehab versus coming out of it. But the trying to pivot and help people because the world has changed and how insurance and medicine works so much in the last 15 years. So Michelle and Jennifer, we are credentialed with straight Medicare. We're credentialed with Cigna and Blue Cross, but it depends on which Cigna. My insurance experts over here, depends on which Blue Shield. And we're learning along the way because it's been, like I said, since 2009, since we actually build insurance. So for the Cignas and the Blue Crosses of this world, we're doing a membership because we're not going to do and cheap people and go to that 15-minute visit. That's just, we're not going to deliver 2 levels of care here. You know, so we have a membership to use those insurances. We do not have a membership to use Medicare right now. If you're a straight Medicare with a supplemental plan, we bill straight to that. The Medicare Advantage plans are trickier, so we haven't gone down that path yet. So the other thing we're trying to do is impact more people because health happens between visits. I need somebody like Lauren, like what am I supposed to eat? My doctor told me to stop taking this because I'm having this done. Do I really need to? That's a whole nother conversation. But a lot of times it's because, it needs to come from us to them to say, they're going to be fine taking this supplement or this medication or whatever it is. And so we need somebody to touch base in between. And by leveraging your insurance you already have, my goal was, okay, we don't have to wait 6 months to check the next set of labs because it's an incremental expense to come in here. If it's inside your insurance and we can check something now and check something in 8 weeks and check something else in 12 weeks and work that way, we will impact more people's health. So that's our goal. That's why this summer we started going to a membership, and Alicia has not run out in traffic yet, but it has come up a few days with dealing with the insurance companies and figuring out how it all works. And it's challenging for you guys too. On your side of the fence, every year about this year, people's insurance changes, and all of a sudden what was covered last year isn't covered this year. What docs were on there last year aren't on there this year, and it's frustrating. So stepping back, because I'm going to summarize, what do we do different? I think we match personalized care. We're going to draw testing and stuff that you haven't had before. We're going to look at your levels to make recommendations for you. We're really good at the things conventional medicine's really bad at, things like irritable bowel. I mean, Michelle's been here a little over a year, but by doing the GI test, it can change lives on how people function from their tummy not being happy. And it's always feels good as a healthcare professional when you change lives. We're going to make recommendations based on you. We're going to help you sort through the consumer fusing that I see out there. We're going to try and leverage with insurance a little bit more, that those of you that we can. I can tell you Aetna already told us no. They said they don't want any more providers in Brevard County. TRICARE isn't taking any providers outside of what's at the base or people who are currently at the hospital. So those are 2 that I know that we're not going to be doing billing for. The other things that we do differently is we look for the weird stuff, like I shared my story of how I got into this type of medicine was being so tired and being told I was normal, that I was fine, I should be tired, I am busy, and finding out about 8 years later than I should have, that I had an autoimmune disorder, that if that had been addressed early on, my life would have been different. And it's sad. And there's a lot of you out there, way more than there should be. Most of our patients come to us for either A, they're healthy and they want to stay that way. They want to be proactive. They read the journals, they get Life Extension magazine, they pick up the books, they get a little confused about what might apply to them, and we help them interpret that. Another big group that comes are those I'm just talking about, the ones that, conventional medicine really hasn't served their purpose or helped them find what's going on and help with that frustration. The third type, I think, that we see a lot of are, for lack of a better word, it's you think you're healthy and you go in and you're 40, 45, 50, and all of a sudden the doctor's like, well, here's your cholesterol medicine. Here's your blood sugar medicine. Here's your blood pressure medicine. And they look at their parents or their grandparents and they're like, I don't want to be like that. How do I turn this bus around? How do I not take these things and get better? And then sometimes it's a catastrophic illness. Somebody gets diagnosed with cancer, somebody gets diagnosed with something that's not real reversible. We're not integrative cancer practitioners, but we can help your body be as healthy as it can be going into that. Lauren's a big help with a lot of things. So she's our health coach. So it's more than just nutrition, though she brought a snack tonight, which will be pretty amazing. She's really good at helping put together healthy and accommodating food allergies and food preferences. But it's also sleep. It's also exercise. It's kind of a new cultural term, but it's so important. How do I engineer my fitness so that I can do in a decade what I want to be able to do? So it's called functional fitness assessments and functional fitness training. We don't all want to be like, Arnold Schwarzenegger or somebody like that. But a lot of us want to be able to go to Disney and walk around and pick up a grandchild or, those kinds of things. And then Michelle is an athlete. And so is actually Lauren's an athlete. A lot of us here are very physically active. But Michelle was going along her happy way and then menopause happened. So we have a lot of people come who, all of a sudden their body isn't behaving the way it used to behave. It's like, I used to could do this and get away with this. How do I get back there? And how do I maintain performance? So I drank the Kool-Aid, I ride a bicycle. I knew Michelle before she actually was connected to maybe come work here because I hated her because on Strava, every single segment of cycling around here, the fastest woman on the bike is that. Most of the time you are, queen of the mountain. Yeah. What's a 60-mile ride? And I was like, I know that name. I've been watching, I follow. But you don't have to perform at that level to get fitness benefits, but there are a lot of people who perform at her level who want to keep performing at her level. Or Lauren, oh my gosh, the running that you do and the awards and accolades, she's amazing, both triathlon and running, but mostly running, I think, is your passion. Kind of. Going, and so Jennifer isn't here and Jennifer. So one of Jennifer's passions that comes out of being a mom of young girls who are athletic is how do we help our young families nourish the kids? Because if they do good in sports performance, they do good in school performance. And how do we help them get better sleep and better balance in their lives? So that's a big part of where Jennifer came over to this side of the world from Health First, was she has a passion for helping the young families, but she also has a heart and a passion for people as they age. So she's got the geriatric certification and the ability she has here to spend more time, to be able to draw more in-depth testing, to look at things like the NutrEval. How do you know what supplement to take other than you got a newsletter, right? Or you picked up a book. We can actually measure levels and pathways, and we can say, okay, you need these. We're not designed to swallow 20 capsules 3 times a day, right? So you need to, we just talked about that. I hate swallowing pills. I nurse them all day long. I think I took my last one, the flavonoid one. So I'd rather do it with food, and we do start with food first here. So I'm going to open it up to questions. I have somebody watching Facebook, but she stepped out to go get the dessert. So if there are any questions coming that way, what questions do you like to? I like it being more conversational than a lecture. Any?
New to the county, introducing, to tonight. I was diagnosed with, what's called GME, myopathy.
Okay. You're Michelle's friends, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Because I'm struggling with, something that is chronic and there's really no answers. I was diagnosed at Mayo Clinic in 2019 and I've been to NIH in Bethesda a couple of times. I was trying to be a part of the drug trial up there. Right after COVID. And you're, year and a half,
Yeah.
2 years. And I was disqualified, because my upper body was too strong.
isn't that terrible? Some of the clinical trials, like University of Miami is doing stem cell trials for knee instead of knee replacements, right? But to qualify to be in the trial, you have to not be a surgical candidate, meaning you've got to be so unhealthy that they don't want to put you under anesthesia, and then they'll give you stem cells. That's not the population to be doing stem cell research on. It should be on the young, somewhat healthy athlete who wants to keep going, or the person who I don't know, just a pet peeve. But yeah, a lot of the NORD, National Organization of Rare Diseases, a lot of the drug trials, because they don't know what's going to happen from the drug, they want you to be in such a bad place that if something bad happens, it's not going to impact that much
Yeah.
of your function, which is,
It's for me difficult. And I said, I don't understand how I need to be a part of this drug trial, right? Like, I don't want to be a guinea pig, but at the same time, like,
I want an option.
right. But how can you take, I mean, my lower body is beyond me, and I won't just give up.
So-
I make myself that weak, and that's what I had to do, and there's gotta be another option, and I'm struggling to find that.
So I don't know if he's still there, but there was a doc at Emory who worked on, for lack of a better word, the muscular dystrophy type looking diseases that before genetics, they walk like a duck and talk like a duck. So they diagnosed them as being a muscular dystrophy case. And I still share a couple patients with him who don't quite fit the genetic bucket, but they have some weakness. And I was very impressed coming at it from an integrative kind of place, because a lot of the recommendations that came out of that clinic were and they were doing spinal taps and all kinds of not fun tests, which you probably have been through, to do like carnitine, like the prescription one, and at a very high dose, and CoQ10 and things like that to nourish the muscles and the nerve conduction that these individuals have. So I don't know if you've looked at Emory. I'm not even sure if he's still there, because the two patients I'm thinking of graduated,
I read into it, hearing her
Mhm.
issues and whatnot, and what didn't make sense to me was that specific genetic disorder means that you don't produce, and I probably say it wrong, but soleic acid. And that's why you don't have the protein for your muscles or whatever. But if you Google it, there's 50 supplements out there for soleic acid.
Yeah, I know.
So like, is there not some kind of way to figure out what works best and replace? what
How do we
you're
get-
Not creating, so that you can then maintain your muscle?
Yeah. And genetic whether it becomes a philosophical, almost religious conversation about what CRISPR technology and gene therapy and all that kind of stuff is doing. But, cystic fibrosis, they're making big strides in some of those things with doing some of that. Of course, the first kid they ever did any of that on died, so there's a huge step back of, okay, how do we make sure who's a good candidate and who's not? But regardless, whether you're diagnosed with something like you have or cancer, it doesn't hurt for your body to be healthier, to be as healthy as it can be coming into this. Are you a N of one? Are you the first genetic person in your family?
As of right now, that we can find in my family tree,
Yeah. See,
Yeah, it's, you've never heard of it.
not that specific,
Yeah.
but to be honest, I didn't go look at the other two people's charts to see what theirs is either. Do you know what I mean? Because
Which was so interesting, of course.
I just know that we used to not have the ability to look at the genes. So people who had the progressive muscle weaknesses like limb, scapular, muscular, we just had these like global diagnoses. And now all of a sudden with genetics, we can say, oh, you're this one and you're that one and you're this one. And we no longer do that, but the treatment hasn't kept up with the personalization of the genetics at all. I'd be interested to see what Mayo and NIH had to say, but I do agree that I do think nutrition should fix some of this somehow,
Well,
right?
I mean, that if that is.
Not fix is the
what
wrong word.
If that's what that is just simply your body doesn't make this specific thing. But you can buy supplements of it, like, can you not find a way?
Well, sometimes, or how do we get it into where it needs to be,
Exactly.
right? How do you get it into where it needs to be? What about you? Did you have any? I know we talked with a couple questions before. Yeah. Yeah. So we talked a little bit before. I didn't know if there were any questions on the Bravo. So I'm going to let Lauren serve her dessert. We figured it was too late for dinner. Really, who wants a snack? And what is this made out of, Lauren?
It's Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, vanilla, and maple syrup with some fun toppings.
Thank you.
It's a cheesecake mousse.
It's called a cheesecake
Cheesecake
mousse.
yogurt.
So one of the things we find when we have patients count macros, meaning how many grams of protein, how many grams of carbs, how many grams of fats, how many calories, what they're eating, there's a lot of people who don't get enough protein. It's pretty amazing sometimes how low the macros are in protein. Not that I am not a carnivore diet fan. I don't tell everybody to be on the paleo, carnivore, whatever we want to call it now. But protein does seem to be lacking in a lot of people's diets. And when we talk about biochemical, I forget who we were talking to. There's a phrase I use a lot with my patients. It's like the labs show a certain stress pattern. For example, the thyroid might show a certain stress pattern. And everybody immediately goes to the elections or the finances or things like that. But the strongest trigger for adrenal stress and a stress pattern that can show up in the thyroid and other areas of your body is protein malnutrition, calorie malnutrition, chronic pain. Those kinds of things show up. And so giving people a little bit more protein and teaching how to hide it and make it taste good. Now this is dairy-based, so if you've got a dairy allergy, this is not the best option for you.
It's Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, maple syrup, and vanilla. And then just like some granola and a
What
few
kind of
drops
granola?
of
What is it? It's good.
It's bare naked. Yeah.
So it's
So did you put this in some kind of blender to
Yes.
disguise the
Yes.
cottage cheese into the?
Blend it. Yeah. Yes. you can go and-
She's also a pro at making protein-filled ice cream with the Ninja Creamy. Actually, Alicia is as well. That's a big fad at our office over the last year, is making things in the Ninja Creamy.
I have a little question. It's really small.
Yeah.
Are you one of those people with the jars of protein in your powder that you're putting into your smoothies and all that stuff? Or do you think that taking some Greek yogurt like Fage and putting that in is enough protein?
So I like food first, and so protein powders, we have them here. And some of them are flavored, make things taste good. And like when I was traveling, I will take some protein powder in a shaker cup to shake. Protein powder is still a processed food. And so a lot of what we talk about here is moving away from hyper processed or processed
So
foods.
you take the protein. Right.
Mhm.
I think I'm doing it. It was just, oh, you should go ahead and add the protein too. And I'm like, really? Should we?
Yeah, if I were to count my macros, which I have done, and I'm not getting enough protein, and I don't see where else I'm going to get it in, then I think protein powder and adding it to things is a good option. But as far as, I'd rather see people eat real food. And not,
You guys come.
I like,
Don't do that.
so that's part of, I think all four of us bring that to the table, is busy lives, but understanding how important the food is that you eat to your health, is how do you do it? And me going through training with having babies and little ones, how do you do it healthy, fast, easy? And in one of the programs we used to do in the office was healthy eating for busy families. And we would set up like a couple of things and do samples of how to cook and get things healthy for the short term. But I'm a big Instant Pot, crock pot, rice cooker. I do a lot of that. I have a Ninja Creamy that I keep here because we use it here all the time, or more than I use it at home. But prep, I think we all cook, and yeah. Well, there is immaculate conception or consumption, consumption. Sorry about that.
On that note, maybe pass our message.
So we have some protein powders because there are people who use that. And for example, the healthy ice cream, which is full of protein, has some cottage cheese and you use some of the protein powder to flavor it. What's the latest favorite flavor?
I like the maple, I like the cake batter, I like the vanilla, I like the chocolate mint.
All of
I like
that.
the white chocolate.
Oh gosh. Okay, I asked the wrong person. It's called Clean Simple Eats. It's a protein powder.
We made it. Yeah.
So they use the Ninja.
I could talk
We do
to
have
her all
recipes,
day.
yeah.
about it.
But you have to have the Ninja Creamy maker. Yeah.
But you need it.
Yes.
I think
We're gonna be
Literally thing,
By the
Michelle.
You definitely need
Uh,
that.
on that note.
I will say for the holidays this year, I was like, what should I do for the team here? And a lot of us have that, but a lot of the team did not. And so Alicia's like, oh, let's get everybody a Ninja Creamy. So that's was this year's Christmas present and surprise.
Buy yourself one.
So are either of you up to stepping in front of the camera, introducing yourselves? No. Turn. But yeah, we start with food first. Like, for example, if your omega check isn't where it's supposed to be, I'm going to talk to you about what kind of fish, how often you need to eat it, where's good places to clean sources, and then I'm going to turn you over to Lauren for more recipes and other options. There are people who won't eat fish, right? There are vegetarians who, want to get their things from algae sourced or something. So there's a lot of ways to get to the goal. But I like to start with food first. And I like data. I'm a little bit of a data nerd. I'm not going to tell you to take vitamin D unless I know your level and I know where the level should be and I know how to get you there and we're going to be following it. It's not just a blanket. Everybody needs X. Everybody needs Y. There's a few things I take all the time, but I tend to take a lot of the latest conference I go to. Like if it's all about brain health, well, then I'll take a bottle of all the new stuff about brain health, and then I'll go to a conference about detox, and then I'll take all the stuff for that. But I don't believe we're supposed to, I mean, we're not supposed to be taking lots of capsules, whether it's pharmaceutical or supplements. We're really supposed to eat food. And if you won't eat vegetables, okay, well, we need a greens powder, we need more. But if you will eat vegetables, if you'll eat fish, you'll eat protein. And our goal with Lauren is to help people figure out, okay, my life is busy. How do I do this? Or I grew up, my mom didn't know how to cook. I grew up thinking I didn't like anything, because she was in the farm, in the fields, and the older girls were in the house helping grandma cook. So she didn't grow up learning how to cook. Chinese food came out of the choy can, I didn't think I liked hardly anything. And over the last 40 years, I figured it out. Had to along the way because I cared about the health, and then I had kids who had health issues too. And then you work around them. Do you have kids? Yeah. A lot of fun. Work and fun. We were just talking earlier as Jennifer was leaving about, I was like, you're going to enjoy this. You're going to look back at this. She goes, everybody tells me this. I said, but in the moment, sometimes you want to go. It is that. Well, I'm going to sign off for live, and hopefully everything's good. Thank you for joining.